Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be looking at root hair cells. We'll look at what they do and why they're so good at their job. If you watch all of this video, by the end, you should be able to explain how water and minerals move into root hair cells, the features of root hair cells that make them particularly good or well adapted at their job, and then at the end of the video, I've put a little quiz so you can check how much you've remembered and understood. So welcome to BioSmash. I'm Jo, I'm a science teacher, and I'll help you smash your biology revision. So the job of the roots is to absorb as many water and mineral particles from the soil as possible. And if you zoom in on a root, you will see that there are actually tiny little hairs on it. The root hairs look something like this, and the water and minerals move through them. Under a microscope, you might see that each root hair is actually attached to a root hair cell. And we're going to look at how one of these cells is adapted for its job. Let's start with a diagram. So the green part is the inside of the plant or the inside of the root, and the white part of the diagram is the soil. So there are lots of water and mineral particles in the soil, and the plant wants to absorb the water and minerals from the soil so that the plant can use them. The shape of the root hair cell is really important. Because the root hair sticks out into the soil, it means the cell has a really large surface area and can absorb more water and minerals for the plant. Let's start by looking at how mineral molecules move into the root. At the start, there may be more minerals inside the soil than there are inside the root. We can say that there is a lower concentration of minerals inside the root and a higher concentration of minerals inside the soil. And if you know about diffusion, this means that the minerals will diffuse from a higher concentration to a lower concentration, so they will diffuse into the plant, into the root. I haven't got time to go through diffusion in lots of detail now, but if you would like a bit more help understanding what it is, then I suggest you watch this video and I'll put the link to it below. Eventually, the plant will absorb so many minerals from the soil that there are more minerals inside the plant than in the soil. We say that there is a higher concentration of minerals inside the root and a lower concentration of minerals inside the soil. If you watched my other video on diffusion, you will understand that the mineral particles will now move from inside the root, where there's a high concentration of them, into the soil where there's a lower concentration of them. So this means that the mineral particles will be moving out of the root and back into the soil, which is not very helpful for our plant. But our plant wants to keep moving the minerals in the opposite direction to diffusion, moving them from a lower concentration in the soil to a higher concentration inside the plant. And this process is called active transport. And because the minerals are moving in the opposite direction to the way that they would naturally diffuse, this needs energy to force them in. So this is why it's called active transport. To help you picture this, imagine a train. If one carriage on the train is really crowded, full of people with not enough seats, and the other carriage is fairly empty with plenty of seats, the people are naturally going to want to move to the carriage that's emptier because they prefer to have a seat. So this means there'll be a natural flow of people from the crowded carriage into the emptier carriage. However, if for some reason you need to move the people from the emptier carriage into the crowded one, you're going to need to use quite a lot of energy to persuade them and force them to move through to the place that they don't want to be. The minerals in the soil aren't like people because they don't have a brain and they can't make decisions, but they will naturally move from a higher to a lower concentration by diffusion. So if the plant wants them to move in the opposite direction, this will need energy, and this is called active transport. And it means that the root hair cell needs to contain lots of mitochondria to release lots of energy so that the plant can carry out active transport and pump minerals into the root. As we've talked about in my other videos, mitochondria have the job of taking in glucose, which is a type of sugar, and breaking it down to release energy for the cell to use. So the cell might use that energy for active transport. If you want to know a bit more about mitochondria and how they work, then check out this other video all about them, which is linked below. Now let's look at how water moves into the root. To fully understand this process, you need to understand osmosis. If you need a little bit more help with osmosis, I recommend that you check out this video, which is linked below. Thanks to active transport, there will be a higher concentration of mineral ions inside the plant and a lower concentration of minerals inside the soil. These minerals are dissolved in water, so we say that they are a solution. Now, inside the plant, there is a higher concentration of minerals, so there's a stronger solution. The soil contains a weaker solution because there are more water particles and fewer mineral particles. Let's zoom in on just one root hair cell. So remember, the soil contains a weaker solution, and inside the cell there is a stronger solution. And if you've watched my video on osmosis, you'll know that water particles move from a weaker solution to a stronger solution through a partially permeable membrane. So this means that water particles will move into the cell. As the water particles continue to move into the root hair cell, the solution inside the root hair cell will start to get weaker because there are more water particles. So the solution inside the root hair cell is now weaker than the solution inside the next door cell. And because water will always move from a weaker solution to a stronger solution by osmosis, this means that water moves from the root hair cell into the cell next door. And this means that the solution inside the root hair cell starts to get stronger again, so more water can move in from the soil by osmosis. And it looks something like this. So you can see there's an overall flow of water into the root hair cell and then out the other side to the next cell and to the next cell all the way through the root. Now that we've looked at how root hair cells absorb water and minerals and how they're adapted for their job, let's have a check-in to see how much you've remembered. So imagine you've been given this question. Explain how root hair cells are adapted for their job. You should be able to think of two ways. So the answer's coming in a second, so if you need a little bit more time, then just pause the video. Firstly, they have a large surface area to help them absorb as many minerals as possible. Secondly, they contain lots of mitochondria which release energy for active transport so that the cell can pump minerals into the plant from the soil. If you'd like some extra help learning key ideas and sentences that you can use in your exam, then you might like to check out our online shop, and I've been developing different resources to help you with this. The links are below. So a big well done to you for reaching the end of the video. Don't worry if you didn't get it all the first time. It is a lot to remember, so as I always say, spend some time watching it again, maybe watch it tomorrow or the day after, and keep going until you get all the key ideas. If you keep working at it, together we'll smash your biology revision.